Well, President Trump says he's on the way to the Middle East, where crowds here are waiting for news that the Israeli government has ratified the deal. Phase one in a process designed to bring an end to this devastating two-year war. A full ceasefire will go into effect within the next 24 hours. A minimum of 400 aid trucks a day will enter Gaza. On Friday, Israeli troops will begin a partial withdrawal, but they will remain in over 50% of the Strip. And Hamas is expected to release the remaining hostages by Monday. Israel will also free hundreds of Palestinian prisoners and detainees. But some of the most difficult issues, like who will rule Gaza after the war, are not yet resolved. In our first report tonight, here's our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Porrick O'Brien.
News came through late last night in Hostages Square, Tel Aviv. Agreement had been reached. The mother and sister of Matan Zangoker, a soon-to-be released hostage, summed it up. By this morning, thousands had gathered to celebrate the most important deal Donald Trump has ever broken. It is a declaration of the end of a war. Not a temporary ceasefire, but not a peace plan either. On the streets, though, those distinctions didn't matter. And in Gaza, celebrations too. You could finally see the faces of the men who spent 2 years covered in dust, pulling bodies out of the rubble, and those faces were smiling. For a short window, two societies defined by division and death, celebrating the same thing, the end of the nightmare. And here's how it came about yesterday. At the talks in Sharm el-Sheikh, Trump, through his envoy Steve Witkoff and son-in-law Jared Kushner, had locked in the Israelis. The Qataris, Egyptians and Turks had nailed down Hamas. It was a masterstroke that got it over the line.
Fighting crime is more than just getting the bad guys.
Not long before this, word sent to Washington and the moment for history's storyboard, or at least its social media feed. A round table at the White House about strife and division at home.
The epidemic of left-wing violence and Antifa-inspired terror.
Interrupted by news of a ceasefire abroad. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, passes his boss a note. Pursed lips from the man about to clinch his greatest foreign policy deal. The whisper from Marco Rubio. Then this.
I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly, so I will take a couple of more questions.
The whisper picture, the note, the archives await. But this is 2025, this is Donald Trump diplomacy, so your socials need feeding. The note read, very close, we need you to approve a Truth Social post so you can announce deal first. Families of hostages visiting Washington heard it from the man himself.
You just take care of yourselves. The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
From there, the world got the message. We're heading into a weekend of ecstasy and of agony for families all across Israel. 48 hostages, 20 of them alive. And concurrently, Palestinian families also waiting for their loved ones to return. While in Gaza, many have no homes to go to at all, just picking up the pieces of their shattered lives. In the center of the Strip today, people gathered waiting for the IDF withdrawal so that they could return home. Hours after the agreement was reached, an Israeli tank appears to fire close to the crowd. The violence not over for some, but hope nonetheless, if not for yourself, for your children.
I'm extremely happy because this truce means that the children can live. It's not for the adults. We've been dead for a long time.
Over 67,000 people have been killed in Gaza in the last 2 years. There are no winners in this conflict, only survivors.
And Porrick is with me now. Porrick, all day we've seen politicians, people, released hostages and hostage families coming into the square to share this moment, and they have some extraordinary stories.
They certainly do. Earlier today I sat down with Itzik Horn. He is a remarkable man. Two of his sons were taken into hostage from the Nir Oz kibbutz during the October the 7th attacks. Yair was released in February as part of the last mediated settlement, which eventually collapsed. But his other son, Ethan, is still in Gaza, and he's due to be released this weekend. I started by asking their father, what got him through the last 2 years? How did he just keep going?
קודם כל התקווה, זה מה שנתן לי כוח, וזה ברור שמה שנתן לי יותר כוח זה שאני צריך לעשות את הכל, אבל את הכל בשביל להחזיר את הילדים. וגם הרגשתי שהמלחמה היא עם ארגון הטרור חמאס, אבל הקרב עם כאב גדול זה עם הממשלה שלי.
Do you not want to elaborate because this is a very sensitive moment in time?
אני אומר את זה מזמן. אני גם ביקשתי מראש הממשלה שיוריד את הסמל מהז'קט שלו, כי הוא לא עשה את הכל בשביל להוציא את החטופים. וזה קרה עכשיו בגלל הנשיא טראמפ, רק בגלל הנשיא טראמפ.
Do you have any sense of Ethan's condition at the moment?
תראה, אני יודע לפי מה שסיפר לי יאיר, שמודיעים להם כמה ימים קודם שהם הולכים להשתחרר, והדבר הראשון שעושים, הם מתחילים להכיל אותם, שהם לא ייראו כל כך רע. ישראל ביקשה מהצלב האדום שיבקשו מהחמאס שלא יעשו את זה, כי זה מסכן אותם. נראה מה יקרה. אבל לפי מה שראיתי בסרטון בפברואר, הוא לא נראה טוב.
Well, earlier I spoke to the former Israeli Prime Minister and IDF Chief of Staff Ehud Barak. He is one of around 600 retired Israeli officials who sent an open letter to Donald Trump in August requesting that he put pressure on Israel to end the war in Gaza. And I began by asking him for his reaction to today's news.
It's a great day. I hope that nothing will torpedo this deal. It seems that the first stage, at least, namely bringing back the hostages, releasing prisoners, withdrawing with the IDF to certain mutually agreed line, and then formal ending of war is going to happen. The rest of the 16 points, time will tell, but I hope that they will work as well.
Right now, Israel has had to accept that Hamas is the negotiating partner and Hamas remains in control effectively. Is this victory?
Practically speaking, Hamas as a military organization had been defeated more than a year ago. The new campaign in Gaza in the last several months, we call it a war of deception. It has nothing to do with security of Israel. Basically, it's very good that Trump mastered the political will, determination to just order Netanyahu to put an end to it, and that's what is happening now.
How do you think all the peoples of these lands come to terms with what has actually happened here?
I think that basically many of them understand that Hamas is responsible, but of course they doesn't want to see such a deep destruction and suffering. You know, we were compelled into this war. And the pictures which the publics in the whole world have seen caused a major damage to Israel. I'm confident there was no deliberate intention, no orders within the IDF to carry any kind of war crime or anything like this. But if the results are different and some pictures hint to this possibility, we have a responsibility to check and investigate any case once the war is over and hold anyone who made illegal behavior to make him accountable. We will do it, I believe.
Including the Prime Minister?
I'm confident that will be one of the first demands of the public is to immediately establish National Inquiry Committee led by a Supreme Court judge, which will inquire everything that happened before October 7, during October 7, and since then, in the last 2 years. And I have no doubt that Netanyahu has to end his historic role. And that, I believe, will come naturally once the war is over.
Do you believe Israel will ever accept a Palestinian state?
There is a strong pain, a very heavy frustration, anger, rage, calls for revenge, a sense of humiliation. People, if you try to talk to them right now, even political leaders which they like, talking to them about Palestinian state right now, they lose their attention. Leadership should know that a two-state solution is the only sustainable situation. We don't need it as a favor to the Palestinians. It's about our own identity, our own future, and our own security. Because between the river and the sea, there live 15 million people. Half Jews and half non-Jews, mainly Arab Muslims. And if only one political entity reigning over this whole area, named Israel, it will become inevitably, that's the key word, inevitably, either non-Jewish or non-democratic, because if this block of millions of Palestinians can vote to the Knesset, it's an overnight, it becomes a bi-national state with Muslim majority. That's not the Zionist dream. And the same applies if they cannot vote. If they cannot vote permanently, that's not democracy. So we have a compelling imperative stemming out from our own interests, our own future, our own identity. That's the only solution.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Donald Trump told his cabinet this afternoon that he thought there would be a lasting peace in the Middle East and declared nobody thought it was possible to get it done. He said he would be travelling to Egypt for an official signing and also to Israel this weekend, although details are still being worked out. Let's get the latest from our US editor, Anushka Astana. Anushka.
Yeah, that meeting has now finished. The White House is preparing to welcome the Finnish president. But of course, the Middle East was a huge focus of that meeting. Donald Trump making clear that in travelling to the region, what he really wants to be there for is the release of those hostages, which he said could run into Tuesday because of the difficult places that people were being held. We also heard from the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who talked about how we got here. He said it was the relationship Donald Trump had built with Arab countries, including that meeting at the UN General Assembly. Now, it is not unusual for cabinet members to lavish praise on Donald Trump in these meetings, but experts I speak to do agree with one thing that Marco Rubio said, which is that actually other recent US presidents would not have been able to achieve this, because when Donald Trump brought that deal back here to the White House and met Benjamin Netanyahu, he exerted pressure on him. The question, of course, is what happens now. It is very clear that Trump's motivation was around the hostages. When he was asked about phase two, he said, I don't want to talk about that. He said it would happen, that wealthy countries would help to rebuild Gaza, that Palestinians would be able to stay. But when asked what his view was of a two-state solution, he said, I don't have a view. So he doesn't bring that same personal conviction to phase two as he did to the hostages release. That said, he's really enjoying the kudos he's getting here. I think it's the first time I've ever heard him say that the mainstream media were reporting on this fairly. He said it's not the fake news. And in fact, Fox News is just reporting on the New York Times, suggesting maybe he does deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. Now, if he gets that tomorrow, maybe the incentive goes away. But I do think that if he wants to secure his reputation around all of this, then Donald Trump will have to exert similar pressure into phase two of this process.
Anushka Astana in Washington. Now, Israeli forces are said to have dropped more explosives on Gaza than fell on London, Dresden and Hamburg combined in the Second World War. The level of destruction is hard to fathom, as is the humanitarian suffering. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Secunda Kamani, looks at the damage that's been done and the challenges of now rebuilding if the ceasefire holds.
2 of the darkest years, filled with tears and screams, with pain and loss. 67,000 Palestinians killed, most civilians. More than 10,000 children with life-changing injuries. At last, for now in Gaza, relative silence in the skies above. Hope in the hearts of so many. And one of the most desperate priorities, tackling starvation.
One of the biggest challenges is that when you have malnutrition, it's a bit of a wave. It's not that suddenly, because a ceasefire is actually effective, that suddenly you stop the wave. The ceasefire will actually open ways for us to actually have the goods reaching faster people.
Gaza has been reduced to ruins. Less than half of all hospitals are operating in any form. 90% of schools are damaged or destroyed. The ferocity of Israel's assault on Gaza is unprecedented in modern times. On this UN map, the red areas represent destruction, and you can see how Israeli attacks were initially largely concentrated in the north. Then they spread right across the territory as practically the entire population was displaced. By now, more than 90% of all homes have been damaged or destroyed, with some areas completely leveled. This was the city of Khan Yunis before the war, a population of around 400,000 people. 2 years later, this is what's left. In total, there's said to be 61 million tons of debris in Gaza that could take years to clear. And you wonder what kind of future anyone there will be able to build.
Gaza today needs the largest aid drive in modern history by big states, by big powers. You know, the powers who have brokered this should commit to reconstructing Gaza, to reconstructing human life there, because that's disappeared really in many parts.
Amidst the struggle to rebuild all that's been lost, what hope of any justice for the many apparent war crimes committed? Prime Minister Netanyahu still faces an indictment by the International Criminal Court. Israel stands accused of genocide in the International Court of Justice. But the cases are firmly opposed by President Trump. And yet to be established, who will now rule Gaza? This was the scene during the last ceasefire in January. Hamas fighters triumphant. So far, there's been nothing like that today. The group is willing to cede power, but is resisting giving up all its weapons. For all the relief and fragile hope flooding through the region, difficult discussions and the danger of renewed bloodshed lie ahead.
Well, the Palestinian journalist and filmmaker Yousef Hamash has been documenting the war and humanitarian crisis in Gaza for Channel 4 News. He spoke to me earlier for our podcast, The Forecast.
It's a huge achievement for us to know that at least this butchery will stop, the killing will stop. But more than that, people are still lost without any horizon for what's happening next. That's what they think more about it, is just reconstructing Gaza, have the civil infrastructure for human beings to live normal life, health sector that was wiped out, education sector that was wiped out. What they have been exposed to in the last 2 years, they need years just to recover and understand exactly what we've gone through. 92% of the infrastructure in Gaza was destroyed, and houses, 70-80% of the population want to leave because it's an unlivable place, and 2 years of continuous bombing.
Well, a short time ago, I spoke to Ambassador Hussam Zomlot of the Palestinian embassy in Britain, and I asked him whether he thought the ceasefire will last.
We should make sure that it does last. We should make sure that it ends this genocidal war on our people in Gaza. The carnage must end altogether. Israeli occupation forces must withdraw completely and totally from Gaza, allowing for the Palestinian legitimate national institutions, as in the PLO and the Palestinian government, the government of the State of Palestine, to take full control of the Gaza Strip and make sure we immediately provide for our people, and we immediately link with the international community to make sure that the genocide does not repeat. So we go swiftly towards what President Trump talks about as the new peace in the Middle East. So we go to the root cause of all this, which is the occupation and establishing a state of Palestine.
But if people in Israel want to replace Benjamin Netanyahu, they can in elections next year. How do Palestinians who want to replace President Abbas get rid of him?
Well, there will be. The Palestinian government has, and the Palestinian president have committed to elections exactly 1 year from the beginning of ceasefire. So hopefully the clock starts clicking from now, from today. Ticking, I mean, from today. And therefore we will have elections, and it's only the Palestinian people who will be able to elect their leader and their leadership and their parliament, because now we have to also go for national elections. And why 1 year? Because, you know, you cannot really convene elections while your people have just either still going through genocide or have just gone through genocide. You will need the basic time to bring life back to Gaza, even the beginning, the resemblance of life after that utter destruction. So yes, it will be up to the Palestinian people, and only the Palestinian people, to elect their leaders.
President Trump wants what he calls lawfare against Israel to end, the use of the courts to bring accountability. Are you prepared to consider even dropping any of those legal claims for the sake of a peace process?
These processes are independent of anything. These are independent institutions. The ICC and the ICJ are independent institutions. They are the world courts, and they have processes on their own. And the entire international community, our friends in the international community, are part of that process. So the train has taken off. The train has left the station, and accountability is important. And accountability on all, not just Israel. Accountability on anyone who commits war crimes. This is our moment to make sure this shall never ever happen again, and the best and the only way to do so is to hold war criminals to account.
I know you have family in Gaza as well. What does this mean for you personally tonight?
Ability to grieve, Krish, really, to grieve, ability to process the emotional turmoil that we have gone through for 2 years, an ability to really heal and attend to our wounded. It will take us time, and we must be given the space. Today I did have a sigh of relief, I must say, and I welcome all this. We've been desperately calling for it, acting for it, working towards it. And today I just want to say thank you to every single British person, and you know, they are in the millions, in the tens of millions, who have been with us in the streets, in the parliament, everywhere to arrive to this moment, but not just in Britain, but worldwide. This energy was inspired by the Palestinian people's ability to reject erasure, reject extermination, reject annihilation, and reject all the plans up until yesterday of mass transfer of the Palestinian people from their home. Yet another Nakba Netanyahu was planning for our people in Gaza. They rejected all that. So today, at least, the Palestinian will stands undefeated, stands resilient. That inspired the world. And what I feel now, we need to make sure that, yes, we have to feel hopeful. We have to also feel a sense of possibility, but also we have to be cautious and not rest and not relax, but to to double down on the efforts to make sure we get to the finish line. And the finish line is not the end of genocide. The finish line is the end of occupation.
Ambassador Hussam Zomlot, thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer, who's on his first visit to India, praised the Gaza ceasefire deal, but he wouldn't be drawn on whether Donald Trump should be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Our senior political correspondent, Paul McNamara, is travelling with the Prime Minister and sent this from Mumbai.
He started off by saying, quote, it was a crucial first step. He later went on to say, quote, we will work to make sure the deal is implemented in full. His message, peace is closer, but we are not there yet. What was also striking in all of his statements today was how he described it. Ever a diplomat and dripping with flattery towards the White House, he called it, quote, President Trump's peace plan. So I asked him this earlier on.
So, yes or no, Do you now think that President Trump will be a deserved winner of the Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, look, it is a very significant step forward, and it would not have happened without President Trump's leadership on this. And I want to be really clear about that, and I say that from the informed position of the UK having played a part behind the scenes in this with the US and with the mediators. But my focus now is moving this from the stage it's at now, which is really welcome, strongly welcomed, to ensuring that we now move on to the next stage and make a success of this, because that matters to me more than anything else. Thank you.
May have spotted there, we didn't get that simple yes or no. Now look, it may seem parochial on such a consequential day in the Middle East to talk about what this might mean for Keir Starmer back at home, but Gaza has been an issue that has driven a wedge right through his party. It was only last week that his party members at their conference voted that the party should recognise that a genocide had taken place in Gaza by Israel. Talking to those today who were close to Keir Starmer, there is a relief at how today is played out, but there is caution again. Talk to those on the left of the party, and there is still an anger towards it. From all of them, though, there is still a deep, deep caution. The message from everyone has been that yes, we are one step down this road to peace, but the road is long and fraught with danger.